Hey everyone, God bless and welcome. Thank you for joining me in another video. Before we get into our topic, subscribe to this channel. Also share, like, and drop a comment. I do read them. As always, I appreciate everyone's support. Now let's get into the topic of how to survive a toxic environment. This is an important topic, I believe, and one I thought I should cover. This video is really for people who you're in a situation where you cannot readily or immediately leave your toxic environment. My aim for this video is to equip you with some strategies and some coping skills to help you while you're in this environment. But I do want you to keep in mind that the word toxic means poison. So you're going to have to come up with some strategy, some exit strategy or something, or some way of protecting yourself while you're in this environment. Because if you're in an environment that is poisonous, that's poisoning your soul, poisoning your spirit, that cannot be sustained, because eventually what poison does, it kills. Poison destroys, and poison will make you sick permanently. And I don't want that for your life. I know you don't want that for your life. So you have to come up with some sort of exit strategy at some point so you can escape this environment or create some sort of protective shield if you have to cope or be in it. So you're going to have to come up with something so you can survive, and not just survive but thrive, and hopefully I do hope you do escape. So the first thing I want to talk about is how do you know if you're in a toxic environment? So there's some signs and some things I want to discuss. Well, the first sign is there is unrest. There's no peace in the environment. There's people constantly bickering and arguing, and no one can get along. So that's one of the signs of a toxic environment. There's constant unrest, no peace. The next thing is constant stressors. It's just a very stressful environment. You're in an environment that's constantly triggering you and triggering other people. It promotes stress, and it just has everyone on edge. That is a sign. The constant stressors, a sign of a toxic environment. The next thing is that there's very low morale. That can apply to the workforce or your job if you in a toxic workplace. So there's usually low morale that's attached to that. Or even if it's a household or a neighborhood or another kind of environment, it's a demoralizing environment. It's an environment that makes you feel bad about yourself, an environment you never want to go to. You feel bad, you feel terrible, you have to force yourself to go there. So you know that if you feel that way, and if everyone's disposition is down or upset or is sad or no one's happy to be there, you know that that's a toxic environment. That's one of the impacts that it has. The next thing is you have to look for is negativity. The environment is very negative. Rarely is there good words spoken. No one speaks good words. It's just a very negative energy, negative vibe. So there's not a lot of positivity there. Negative speech, negative actions. So it's a negative place. So that's how you know it's a toxic environment. The next sign is bullying. So where there's a toxic environment, there's usually a bully somewhere. So maybe the bully is in your household, the bully is on the workforce, the bully is in the neighborhood, the bully is somewhere. So usually a toxic environment will manifest bullies, and usually they pop up somewhere. So there's bullying involved. The next thing is threats. You feel threatened in some way. That's a toxic environment. You don't feel safe. You feel unsafe and you feel threatened. And usually what follows threats and unsafety is abuse. And there's usually abuse attached there. And it's also an environment that thrives on fear and people being afraid, and because, some people get empowered by that. If you're dealing with a toxic person in a toxic environment, they thrive off of other people's fear, and that gives them some sort of sick, twisted power or sense of empowerment. So if you're in an environment that thrives off of fear, you being fearful, everyone being afraid of the boss, everyone being afraid of whoever the parent or whoever's in the household, the husband, the wife, or whoever it is, the children, some kids are scary. So it's like, it's an environment that thrives off of fear. So those are some of the signs, some of the telltale signs that I know of that creates a toxic environment. It could be one or two or maybe even all of them. But you don't want to be in an environment like this. So here are some tips and some strategies to help you as you cope and live in this condition. Hopefully you can escape and get out of it soon. The first thing you have to do, this is something you must do in this type of environment, is practice. And I've spoken about this in other videos. Radical self-care. You must practice radical self-care. That means you have to put yourself first. That means you have to take care of yourself. That means you have to do the spiritual work. That means you definitely can't slack spiritually while you're in this environment. You have to be very prayerful. You have to do the meditation. You have to do the fasting. You have to go to God. You need to be in church. You need to be in Bible study. You need to be in the Word of God. You need to be studying the Word of God. You have to be doing all the spiritual disciplines. And you have to have that support and taking care of yourself, making sure that you keep with your upkeep, even if you're in an environment that's kind of like beating you down, making sure that you continue to take care of yourself physically, that you continue to eat the right thing, continue, exercise, take care of your health, take care of your physical well-being, continue to look well, dress well, don't change up, So continue to practice radical self-care and push through it even when you don't feel like doing it. Push through it even when you don't feel like praying. Push through it even when you've been in that terrible environment, or you're coming home to that terrible environment and you want to reach for something that's unhealthy to eat because it's going to make you feel better, reaching for that donut or whatever it is. But take care of yourself. Now's the time to take care of yourself, because it's going to make you feel better. So if you practice radical self-care, pamper yourself a bit, make sure, go to the spa, go for a walk, go for a jog, whatever it is that makes you continue to do the activities that make you feel good. You may be crocheting, whatever it is, bowling, going out with friends, but make sure that you practice radical self-care and do the things you need to do to take care of yourself. The next thing to keep in mind is you have to establish boundaries when you're in that sort of environment. When you're in a hostile, toxic environment, you have to establish boundaries. Now, some of you have been in this environment and you didn't establish the boundaries, and now you're in trouble. I'm going to say it's not too late. You can start laying, you may get some pushback and some resistance and, people fighting you, but you have to establish those boundaries, or else they will destroy you, or else they will drive you insane. You have to establish those boundaries and have a cutoff point. Okay, you're not going to talk to me that way. Establish that boundaries. You're not going to treat me that way. Establish that boundary. I'm not going to act unethically in this situation. I'm not going to break the law. Establish that boundary while you're in that toxic environment, Or, it's like, if you're, in a toxic environment where you're dealing with family members, you still have to establish those boundaries. And even if you can't, you get up and you got to look at these people, just you don't engage them. Sometimes establishing the boundary, meaning that you don't have to argue with them. Let them argue with themselves. Don't let them drag you into the mud with them. Disengage. Know when to disengage. Know when to engage and know when to disengage. So that's part of establishing a boundary. I'm not going to get into the back and forth with this person in my household. I'm not going to do that thing that this person at work wants me to do. That could be, a compliance issue. That could be breaking the law. Like, I'm going to draw the line there. Maybe they're used to doing shady things, but I'm not going to do the shady thing, right? So, establish that boundaries. No, you're not going to curse me out and talk to me any way you want to. You're going to treat me like a human being, and you're going to get pushed back. You're going to get pushed back because there are people out there who get angry when they can't mistreat and abuse you, especially in a toxic environment. But if you are strong enough and you can establish those boundaries in a toxic environment, your boundaries are there to protect you. So you have to draw the line somewhere, and you just can't let people run over you. So definitely establish boundaries that will help to protect you while you're in this toxic environment. The next thing is you have to create a positive network and a support group. So you're going to need help from the outside. You're going to need the help of your friends and your family members and loved ones. You're going to need prayer partners, people that's praying for you. I do it all the time. I always solicit prayers from people I know that could get a prayer through, that when I'm in a tough spot, when I'm in a tough environment. I know when I've worked in toxic environments and I had to deal with toxic people, that I had people praying for me, and I had, my prayer partners and prayer groups, they actually helped me through the situation. So, we need outside help, friends and family that I talk to, people that I trusted to give that information to, that helped me, that talked me off the ledge. So you definitely need a support group. You definitely need those relationships, whether it be confiding in a spouse or a best friend, or people at your church, or wherever it is, wherever your support group is. Make sure you have that network, because you're going to need them. You're going to need them not just as a sounding board, but you're just going to need that support and that reassurance, and knowing that you have people, okay, I'm in this toxic environment, but I know there's somebody out there that loves me and that cares for me. And I know that this situation is not going to be forever and that it's temporary. So you have to look at it that way too. So the next thing that, thing that will be helpful in a toxic environment is that remember to continue to be yourself. Do not allow the place to corrupt and to poison you and to get you out of character and for you to stop being yourself. Going back to what I stated earlier at the beginning of this video, being in this environment, in a toxic environment, is not one that's sustainable. And it can change you permanently if you don't devise some sort of exit strategy. So don't continue to be yourself. Don't allow the people in the environment to infect you. Don't allow them to change you. Continue to be your wonderful self. Don't switch up for people to appease them. Continue to be yourself. And sometimes being yourself could be a trigger for some people in the toxic environment, because maybe they don't like who you are. Maybe they're jealous of you. Maybe they, are upset that you're not as miserable as they are. So, but always continue to be yourself. Don't let the environment change you. And work hard at that. If you find yourself, if you're typically a very upbeat and jovial person and personality, and you find yourself, being, withdrawn and unhappy and not as talkative or not as perky, then you know that the environment is having a negative impact. Or you find yourself becoming more reclusive, or, nitpicky with others and snapping at other people because you're stressed out because of the environment. You just know that now it's infecting you. You have to go and do some of that spiritual work, but continue to be yourself. Don't let the place change you. And the next thing to keep in mind if you're in this toxic environment is understand your spiritual authority. Understand your authority and your position. Now I'm going to give you some encouragement. Now this is advanced spirituality course, just some of it, right? So I just want you to know, if you're a believer and you are where God has led you to be, and you happen to land in this toxic environment, I want you to know that you have spiritual rights. So having spiritual rights means that if God has allowed you to be in this environment, that God is not going to allow it to destroy you. And if you have spiritual rights and you have a right to be there, and God has allowed you to be there, that means you have the power to influence your environment. You have the power of change. You can change your environment. So that means that if you are in a toxic environment and you have the spiritual rights to be there, and you know that God has allowed you to be in that position, in that place, and He's allowed it to happen, and you know you're a person of purpose, that means that God has given you power and authority even in that toxic and insane environment, and you have the power to change it. Isn't that wonderful that you have the power? God will give you the power and the influence to change it, right? So you have to understand your rights. Now, on the opposite side, if you're in a place that God didn't lead you to be, you don't have the rights there, and the place could destroy you. But if you are where you think you need to be at this time, or you're just there and you're just passing through and it's a rough patch, just know that God has given you the power and the authority to have a positive impact and influence, and actually change the energy and change the toxic environment. I have been in environments that I knew I had the spiritual rights to be in. That was tough, that was challenging, that almost pushed me over the edge, but I knew I had the spiritual rights to be there, and that God has allowed me to be in that place. And I have actually been in a position where I have changed the atmosphere and changed the environment through the Spirit and through the power of God, not through any power of my own, but through basically what I did is I took my authority. I'm like, I don't have to sit through this. I don't have to sit through this negativity. I'm going to do the spiritual work. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray every day on this environment. And I prayed until the change came. It was uncomfortable at first, but you do have the power and authority to influence environments. But sometimes we're in environments that it's just going to be rough, and we're just going to have to pass through it and get through it and be done with it. So those are the things that I want you to keep in mind. Understand you must practice radical self-care. You must establish boundaries. You must have a positive network and support group with you to help you along the way. Always be yourself, don't change, and also understand your power and authority in a position you got. God may put you there to be the catalyst for change, so you can change the environment. So just know that you do have power, and that the power will not the environment will not overcome you or overpower you. So that's what I wanted to share with you in regards to how to survive a toxic environment. I hope my tips are helpful and that they're a blessing to your life. As always, take care, God bless, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.